This is the Sunday stream opening song because the other song is copyrighted. La 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 la. Oh look, here comes Dog Cat Fox.
Hi, Sky.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday stream. The stream I do on Sundays because Sunday is the day to stream on Sundays. Hope you're all doing well on this beautiful Sunday morning. It's kind of dark and gray and overcast and cold outside, but it's beautiful in its own way. You know, it's a kind of beauty of desolation, I suppose. Anyway, how are you all doing on this Sunday morning? Hope you're doing well. And who is joining me on this Sunday morning? I don't know why I say it like that. I'm just weird. I don't know. Mike R., good morning. Noah Asensio, good morning. Tier Alexander, the Gentleman Lich, good morning. Robert Pincus, good morning. Spoonie the Rebel, good morning. Mike Savage, blarg. Let's see who else is here. A2P, good morning. Faustonia, good morning. Resolute Germ, good morning. Tall Person, good morning. Ercole Di Stefano, good morning. Michael Sander, good morning. Mr. E., good morning. Non-Vitae Rex, good morning. Cephtus Wolf, good morning. You're a Ridiculous Lunatic, good morning. Shadowclaw, good morning. Advocatus Diaboli, good morning. Who else is here? Those Ain't Real Dude, good morning. Dina B., good morning. The Luke Skywalker 2, good morning. And I think that's everyone I see presently. If I missed you, if you're lurking, if you're in the future, good morning. And I'll try to get some more good mornings in as people appear. So I had a difficult time finding a subject for today. I will confess that. After my Saturday night special, which happened on Friday night, I thought to myself, boy, I need to find something I haven't touched upon in a while. Because, I mean, I did DEI and DEI. I just can't escape DEI for some reason. I got to break out of the mold a little bit. And what better way to break out of the mold than with intersectional feminism? But this is benevolent intersectional feminism because it's about philanthropy somehow. Centering. What's the official title of this again? Sorry, 1 second. Centering intersectional feminism in philanthropy and beyond. So not just space above and beyond, but intersectional feminism in philanthropy and beyond. So what is intersectional feminism? Well, I guess my curiosity is whether or not they're going to go for the original quote-unquote definition or the evolved definition. What was the original definition of intersectional feminism? Well, to put it very, very briefly, and it's difficult to do, but intersectional feminism was a legal theory created by Kimberly Crenshaw back in the 1990s, effectively to say that you could be discriminated against not because of one element of your makeup, but because of the overlapping intersections of your makeup. So I'm giving a very rough summary here, but Kimberly Crenshaw had a client, I guess. And this client was attempting to sue a company for discrimination because of her race and her gender. And of course, the company came back and said, well, we have many employees of her race and we have many employees of her gender. There's no discrimination in our company. But you see, you don't have many employees of the combination of her race and her gender. Therefore, I've created a new level of discrimination that you are liable for, etc. That was the original thing of intersectional feminism. It was basically to describe the overlapping oppressions of Black women. That was it. Over time, however, it has evolved into anything by anybody at any time, even in feminism. And I've been told on many an occasion that if your feminism is not intersectional, then it's not real feminism. So anyway, I suppose we'll find out what our speakers have to say about the subject today. A couple more hellos before I begin. Kay Scholl, good morning. Brittany Holland, good morning. Did I miss anybody else? I don't think so. I hope not. All right. So anyway, let's learn something, shall we? What does centering intersectional feminism have to do with, or how does it improve philanthropy? And speaking of philanthropy, before I begin, the top of the chat box, if you take a look, there are some fundraisers up there, links to fundraisers for our friends James Colley, Grisella, Maddie, and Angry Illinoisian. And each of them and their families, in one way or another, have recently experienced a hardship, and they could certainly use some help if you have the ability to do so. If that means you can donate, excellent. Thank you so much. If you can't donate, that's fine. But if you can share those out on social media, that would also be appreciated. All right, so let's begin. I'm going to go for an hour and a half in real time at the most, even though this thing lasts an hour and a half in and of itself, pardon me. I'll be surprised if we need more than half an hour of it to know where we're going. And so, yes, let's begin. Oh, that's right. I forgot to mention, this comes to us from Candid. Now, those of you who are veterans to the intertubes and the commentary sphere on YouTube, you may remember a little app called Candid. This is not associated with that, as far as I can tell. I looked it up. I was curious. I was like, is this that Candid? No, this is some other organization called Candid that does other things. This is not the app Candid. This is not the Candid scandal amongst the commentary YouTubers from several years ago. Just as a clarification, I as far as I know, and I'm happy to be corrected. I did a little bit of research, but as far as I know, it has no connection to that app. It just happens to have the same name with a different logo. So there you go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Centering Intersectional Feminism in Philanthropy and Beyond.
You guys hear that okay? Let me know in the chat real quick. Yeah, so like I say, this is not that candid. It may be candid in and of itself as a adjective, but it's not the Candid app. Just to make sure it's clear. TC, good morning. Let's see. All right, everybody sounds good, says Mike R. All right, so let's just go.
You are in the right place for that webinar, and we're excited to have you. I am Yvonne Sims, Educational Programming Manager at Candid, based in Atlanta.
Candid, based in Atlanta. Oh, and we got pronouns. Oh, good, pronouns. We're on a good track here.
And I'm joined by Ebony Carroll, who is in the background doing many things, also based in Atlanta.
Okay.
If you don't know Candid, we are the coming together of Foundation Center and GuideStar. In 2019, these two organizations came together and formed one 501c3 that has data, training, and a lot of information about the nonprofit sector.
And you guys, I mean, I suppose there are only so many names out there in the world, but you picked a rather controversial name given its history, but all right, well, you did what you did.
And this is one of the trainings that we do. We're really happy that not only are we doing, fundraising and talking about the different things that are happening in the social sector, but we also are very much into equitable access. And we now have a team called the Equitable Access Team.
The Equitable Access Team, or EAT. I love to eat.
And part of what we're doing is having webinars like the one we're having today.
Right.
Yay, our speakers today. This is the best part. So really happy to let these ladies take over. We have Miranda McGelly here, Director of Policy and Programs for Women's Funding Network.
The Women's Funding Network. Okay.
We have Veronica Colon Rosario, Executive Director of Puerto Rico Women's Foundation.
Puerto Rico Women's Foundation. Okay.
And Christy Slater, Vice President of Programs at Women's Foundation of the South. And
Women's Foundation, Women's Foundation, Women's Foundation, Women's Funding. Okay.
I'm going to stop sharing and let them take over.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Yvonne, and thank you, Ebony, and thank you to the entire Candid team for the wonderful introduction and the opportunity to present virtually today. Also want to express gratitude to everyone who took the time to listen in.
I'm listening in. You're welcome.
On what I know will be a rich conversation.
Yes.
As Yvonne mentioned, my name is Miranda Migueli. My pronouns are she, her, and I serve as the Director of Policy and Programs at Women's Funding Network.
Okay.
I'm a lawyer by training and interested in intersectional feminism and tools to advance gender justice, whether that be the law, philanthropy, or community action.
Gender justice. Justice predicated on your gender? Okay. So I forget who said it, but someone said if the concept of justice is predicated by anything in particular, it usually isn't justice. I'm probably butchering that quote, but something like racial justice, gender justice, something justice. I mean, it's either justice or it isn't, and trying to qualify it with a particular demographic or something, or on a basis of a particular element, probably doesn't equate to actual justice, but maybe that's just me.
Organizing. I'll let my amazing panelists introduce themselves, but I'm just delighted to be joined by Veronica Colon Rosario.
It looks like it's not Rosario, it looks like Rosaria, unless that's a misspelling. And that name sounds familiar to me for some reason. I wonder if I've seen her on a different panel or something.
Puerto Rico Women's Foundation, and Christy Slater of Women's Foundation of the South.
Yes. Thought you're going to let them introduce themselves. Okay.
For the next hour or so, we'll be discussing the importance of centering intersectional feminism in philanthropy and beyond. And I'm just going to take a moment to share some brief slides.
Okay. If we get to a long land acknowledgement or something, I'm probably going to skip over that.
So in today's webinar, our goal is that you learn more about Women's Funding Network through my brief introduction of the organization, but more importantly, through hearing from our two panelists who represent some of the incredible organizations in our network.
I might skip over this to get to the actual discussion because the title kind of gives me a hint as to what I'm supposed to be learning about. So I'm just going to jump ahead. I'll read the card just for informational purposes. So Women's Funding Network, WFN provides a collaborative environment for gender equity funders that connects bold ideas with the resources to propel them into action. Today, the Women's Funding Network is a growing community of over 130 women's funds and foundations spanning 13 countries and 6 continents. Our growing community is served by a diverse team, including our talented staff and our board of directors, composed of member representatives, visionary supporters, and thought leaders worldwide. That's THOUGHT for those of you listening at home. Okay. Because thought leaders could be a completely separate category. Our mission is as a global alliance is to provide strategies, research, and resources that support the critical agency and influence of women's foundations and gender justice funders in the movement for equality, justice, and power for all. For all? Should straight white men get more power? Pardon me while I turn off my space heater. It's getting a little bit muggy in here. Our vision, we envision a world where just outcomes for all genders, both of them, of all races are regarded as all genders of all races. Do different races have different genders? At this point, you know what? They probably do. They probably do. All genders of all races are regarded as crucial to the creation of dynamic and effective social, political, and economic policies and systems. Our values, our guiding values include relationships. Is relationship a value? Okay. Solidarity. Okay. Integrity. All right. Impact. Impact is a value. Okay. Abundance, gratitude, and courage. Those are some interesting choices for values. Skipping ahead. Okay, so we finally get to our first speaker right about here. Okay, so let's continue.
To our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Miranda. If it's okay with you, Christy, I can start introducing myself and then start the conversation. My name is Verónica Colón Rosario, and I am the Executive Director of the Fundación de Mujeres en Puerto Rico, in English, Puerto Rico Women's Foundation. I've been doing this job for 2 years, but I have built my career in public service. I lived in DC 11 years, and I moved back to Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria back in 2017. And just briefly about the Puerto Rico Women's Foundation, we are the first and the only philanthropic entity in Puerto Rico exclusively dedicated to the issue of gender equality and fund organizations that serve, organize, and advocate for women, girls, and the gender expansive community.
Women, girls, and the gender expansive community. The gender expansive community sounds like some kind of subheading on DeviantArt or something, but okay.
And I'll pass it to my colleague, Christy, to introduce herself.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Veronica, and thank you, Miranda, for inviting me, and Candid, certainly, for the opportunity to speak with all of you today.
Christy Slater. I wonder if her full name is Christian Slater. That'd be funny.
So good afternoon, friends. My name is Christy Slater. I am the Vice President of Programs for the Women's Foundation of the South, or WFS for short. WFS is...
Did she just roll her eyes when she said that? Okay.
Is a relatively new foundation. We were launched in August of 2021 and just recently celebrated our second anniversary. Women's Foundation of the South is focused on building the health, wealth, and power of women and girls of color across the American South.
Oh, okay. So you're a racist organization. Okay.
And Andrew, you want to kick us off in this conversation?
Yes, let's have a conversation.
Or I could share. I'm sorry. Before we go any further, I would like to share that I've been a part of the foundation since its inception. I was part of the strategic planning, and then joined the foundation as the VP of Programs in February of 2022. But I've been in the field of philanthropy for 20 years now.
Wow!
And working in both state, national, and now regional foundations.
All right, and just because I like to be accurate, what exactly is the definition of philanthropy? I mean, context clues kind of tell you, but just for edification purposes. Philanthropy, noun, the desire to promote the welfare of others, expressed especially by the generous donation of money to good causes. All right, so let's just so we have a level set as what we're purportedly talking about.
Really excited to have this conversation with you all this afternoon.
Mm-hmm. What are we conversing about, by the way? I'm still not sure. Somebody want to?
Well, thank you so much. I'd love to just start off with a question for the both of you, and that is, I shared the UN Women's definition of intersectional feminism.
The UN's definition of intersectional feminism. Oh, well, I guess I was right at the top then. We have, are you going to tell us what that is just for clarification?
But maybe Veronica, you could talk to us a little bit about how you define intersectional feminism. And
okay. All right, well, then I'll look it up. What is the United Nations definition of intersectional feminism? All right. Intersectionality from the United Nations. An intersectional approach to gender equality acknowledges the fact that women have okay, this is a weird, they somehow the letter V fell out of this. Divergent, I think it's supposed to say, experiences based on aspects of their identity, including race, social class, ethnicity, sexual orientation, religion, age, as well as other forms of identity. And that was the definition as of March of 2017. So, yes, anything and everything about you can come up with as a woman is an opportunity to claim oppression or discrimination. Anything, including being a woman. But okay, that's the United Nations definition. What are your personal definitions?
How it shows up in your work.
Okay.
Yes. I think, for me, intersectional feminism is something that we as feminists have been working on for a while, and it's something that we are individually aware of. That issues, and there are many issues that often intersect and can exacerbate inequalities.
Give us an example.
So for example, I come from the science and research community in mental health. And there was never anything more clear to me than the fact that humanity is a mix of a lot of things.
Humanity is a mix of a lot of things. Let's just let that one digest for a moment. Okay.
Many variables can affect how this human interacts with the environment.
Yes. I have no basis on which to argue with that, I guess.
So I think it really challenges the way we see results and measure impact. We can say, for example, that we've helped 40 women find employment in X sector.
We can say that we've helped 40 women find employment in X sector. And I only half apologize. I'm taking this in bit by bit because I don't want to just wash over me and not think about it, plus the fact that I have to pause occasionally for the sake of YouTube. But okay, human beings are affected by a lot of things. Humanity is made up of a lot of things. You're helping 40 women find employment in X sector,
But did that result in economic mobility? Are we talking about women with children? Are we talking about people who have access or do not have access to childcare? Are we talking about people who have to move from the countryside to the metropolitan area? So
every individual has to deal with their own individual circumstances. So if you get 40 different women a job at the same company, the difficulties, challenges, or advantages they're each going to have to working at that company are going to vary person to person because everybody's different. Same as it would be for men. Same as it would be for people in general. Are these points of oppression? If I live further away from the office than my coworker, am I being punished just for being what I am or something? Let me back up slightly because I don't want to cut her off completely here.
Find employment in X sector, but did that result in economic mobility? Are we talking about women with children? Are we talking about people who have access or do not have access to childcare? Are we talking about people who have to move from the countryside to the metropolitan area? So those are all variables that you have to think about when you're talking about issues. So
wait. Every individual's individual circumstances in their life, their location, their family, these are all things you have to think about when you're thinking about issues. Oh, okay.
It challenges to think that, does it really mean transformation, change, and
what?
Change for who? Like for who is this change?
What?
So it's all about awareness, and is to think strategically and intentionally.
Okay. Okay. Now I'm just getting irritated. For those of you that joined me for my Saturday night special on Friday night, you saw a masterclass in total and absolute BS corporate speak that says nothing, right? We had 4 people on a stage purportedly talking about something meaningful, And not a single one of them, except for I think in 2 sentences or something, ever said anything that wasn't just filler. And I thought, wow, that was, and I mean, I rarely do so, but as you saw on the poll that night and everything else, I ended that one. I stopped watching that one because it was an absolute waste of time. You know, not even for the lulls of listening to corporate speak artists was it worth it. And here we are again. All right, we have 2 or 3 career experts, I'm going to just stipulate, to fundraising and philanthropy and within feminism and intersectional feminism, and given an open floor with no one, intervening or interrupting, asked, define intersectional feminism. What does intersectional feminism mean to you? And we get incoherent babble. Just nothing. So either our speaker doesn't know what intersectional feminism is, or this is intersectional feminism somehow. Anyway.
With information about all the variables that could affect the livelihood of the communities.
All the variables that could affect all the variables. You have every possible contingency to someone's life, from being a single parent to having broken their toe when they were 17. Really? Wow, that's amazing.
We're serving. And how it shows up in my work, and I am going to use the example of Puerto Rico, and I appreciate being in these spaces because Puerto Rico is often not in the conversation in a lot of things. So I'm really appreciative to be here.
Are you representing Puerto Rico? Okay.
So for me, using an intersectional lens also means recognizing the historical context surrounding any issue.
The historical context surrounding any issue. All right, so are you incapable of having a conversation about a subject you're only passingly familiar with unless you've done a deep dive history research on it first? I mean, I guess that would be beneficial, but it would kind of slow down most discussions.
This is why I want to give you this example of Puerto Rico and highlight why this is important.
Okay.
Here we have long histories of violence and systemic discrimination.
Name me a country on this planet that has no history of violence or systemic discrimination. I bet there's one. I bet there's some like isolated island nation somewhere that, has a very limited timeline of things. But okay, yes, Puerto Rico, history of violence and discrimination.
Climate and economic disaster.
Climate and economic. Okay, you're describing every existing and functional country on the planet.
A government who is absent.
A government who is absent. Well, I guess it all depends on one's perspective on that, but yeah, you could claim the same for a lot of, okay,
especially absent after any disaster. We have lack of transparency, and all this exacerbates the deep inequities that we already have.
I don't know. Welcome to humankind, I guess. Some countries are better than others at it.
And it creates disadvantages in the among our citizens. So,
and intersectional feminism is going to cure Puerto Rico of its ills or something?
We can talk. I cannot talk about this concept in Puerto Rico without starting with colonialism.
Wait. You can't talk about intersectional feminism in Puerto Rico without colonialism. So, intersectional feminism is a result of colonialism, or intersectional feminism can resolve colonialism? Okay.
Colonialism and ownership makes our people an afterthought, basically human for critical trials. Like, for example, did you all know that women, a lot of women in Puerto Rico were forcibly sterilized Many years ago, they were also used for experimenting birth control pill and Oxycontin. So,
okay, obviously not good, but citizens being used for experimentation in drugs or other things isn't isolated to Puerto Rico. That doesn't make it good, but okay. Shall we talk about the Tuskegee experiments? Shall we talk about the forced sterilization of women in this country at various times for various reasons, whether it's for mental health or mental development reasons, or how about forced lobotomies? You want to go into that kind of territory? I mean, okay, yes, intersectional feminism has what to do with this, and was it only women that ended up being experimented on or exploited for the sake of pharmaceutical companies or things? Okay, and
it's just to give you a context of the value of life that people who reside in a colony and are Latinx minorities have to go through. And not
don't worry. Being exploited by your government is not isolated to Puerto Rico. No, it's happened in most of, if not all, of the 50 contiguous states. Don't worry. Well, and Hawaii and Alaska. So, sorry, the 48 plus the 2. And, I mean, okay, are you claiming special victimhood? All right. And intersectional feminism has what to do with this?
That all plays a role in the inequities.
That all plays a role in the inequities. Okay, how?
So we are a U.S. territory.
Yeah.
That means property. And
we are a U.S. territory. That means property. Well, guess what? I live in a state of America. You know what that means? It also means property. Okay.
That we're owned and controlled by another entity, both politically and economically.
Yes, I live in a state that is controlled both politically and economically by another entity, either state government or beyond that, the federal government. And
we're sequestered from the geopolitical agenda. We're invisible on purpose because no one wants to admit ownership.
Okay, I couldn't possibly, because I am not so educated, get into the complexities of the history of Puerto Rico and its association with the United States as a territory and not the 51st state and all the arguments over it. I remember us talking about it on Lords of the Night a couple of times years ago now, when it was the idea of making Puerto Rico the 51st state again came up. But outside of that, I can't say. All right, so you've got a chip on your shoulder because Puerto Rico isn't the 51st state. I'll just summarize it in that way. And that has to do with intersectional feminism. How?
The problem is that it has adverse effects for our economy, our political situation, and there's a lot of money being invested in selling Puerto Rico as a paradise. But a paradise for who? Because we cannot afford living here, and it's really difficult living here.
I can barely afford to live where I'm at, and I'm an American citizen in one of the 48 states. So I'm not saying that I'm in the same situation as Puerto Rico. I just what are you talking about?
And this is why people leave. So public policy here is being shaped to bring investments and benefit a few, with the clear goal of continue displacing us, making Puerto Rico whiter and wealthier, but not with Puerto Ricans.
Okay, just as a level check for a second. Thank you, Mr. E. Puerto Rico doesn't meet the population requirement for statehood, neither does D.C. Yeah, I know D.C.'s been trying to get statehood in some fashion for a long time, and keeps failing again and again and again because the laws dictate. I remember this bit, that the laws dictating what qualifies some territory to become a state, DC never meets and can't meet unless you like completely alter the Constitution or something. There's like a hard stop requirement. So, okay, you're sore that Puerto Rico isn't a state. That's the long term. You're sore that the Puerto Rican government and the economy isn't serving you the way, or your family the way you'd want it to. Okay, hey, there are people that make those same arguments about every state in this union, depending on, and whether or not their arguments have weight to them or not, I don't know. But complaining about how things are run by the government above us is one of the wonderful freedoms we have in this country. All right. And intersectional feminism comes into the equation where? And philanthropy comes into the equation how?
And I'm saying this because, for example, for me as a foundation,
yes,
when we are working with organizations that support survivors of gender-based violence.
Survivors of gender-based violence. I always get kind of fuzzy on that term, gender-based violence. You're talking about violence against women. Just say violence against women. Gender-based violence doesn't make any particular sense. I mean, if a guy beats up another guy because he's a guy, or at least that's part of the equation, that's gender-based violence. If a girl beats up another girl because she's a girl who's making eyes at her man, that's gender-based violence. Just say violence against women. I don't understand why that's so difficult to do, or why I can't clarify that. Why I have to generalize it? Or are we stuck in the whole conundrum of what is a woman?
We have to understand that they are also dealing with this displacement, with inflation, with increasing cost of property that makes it impossible for them, for example, afford transitory housing. We have organizations that have to work with women that, on top of having to heal from coming out from a cycle of violence, they have to heal in an environment and a system that continues to be violent against them.
And none of these situations, none of these issues, none of these factors affect men? Or they affect men less? But even if it affects a man the same way, without going to statistics, does a man not deserve such considerations? Okay.
And another example, these policies are displacing the policies to bring outside investment, outside wealth investment.
Yes, the policies to bring money into an economically unstable country with questionable leadership and corruption and all of it. Yeah.
Are displacing the Black and Dominican the Dominican communities from Santurce. Santurce is a town close to San Juan, which is a town I'm sure everybody knows about, Puerto Rico.
Wait, the Dominican Republic. Is the Dominican Republic within Puerto Rico?
And Black women dominate the statistics of people living under the poverty line. So now you're seeing how displacement, economic mobility, all has an effect on the livelihood of the women we serve.
Okay. If you say so, sure. All right. And so intersectional feminism as a philosophy and centering it in the realm of philanthropy does what?
So feminists in Puerto Rico had this figured out a long time ago.
Oh, yes, because they're all geniuses.
They had to advocate for issues beyond women and girls.
Beyond women and girls? All you're advocating here is for women and girls. You've only talked about women. You're a women's foundation. So why call yourself a women's foundation?
They had to fight displacement, attacks against the LGBT communities, colonization, racism, a bad economy, corruption, and now political fundamentalists and conservatism.
Political fundamentalists and conservatism. Boy, oh boy, that's a lot to battle against all at once. However do you manage? Because
it all affects gender justice and the work that we do to achieve gender justice.
Okay, so all of that, economic displacement, corruption, conservative politics, etc., all of that affects gender justice, which you're trying to achieve. Okay, so how are you solving for all of that with intersectional feminism?
So they get the intersection and how it affects gender equity. And that's just, I'm gonna let Christy talk more about how she sees it and how she defines it. But that's just basically, a brief snapshot of how we see it in Puerto Rico.
There was nothing basic and nothing brief about any of that.
And just to summarize it.
Well, I guess it was a summary, but it told us practically nothing. See, the problem with intersectionality, and this is, I made up this a long time ago. I said it's the process of taking many, many molehills, piling them together, and calling it a volcano. Each one may indeed be a problem unto itself. Pile them up into this giant thing. How do you solve for that? Right? If every problem overlaps with every other problem, and you're stating that your philosophy is there to both understand and solve, presumably, for that combined problem, I'd love to know what it is, because that makes it sound like intersectional feminism is a panacea or is a roadmap to a panacea. But then I don't ever hear exactly how it's solving anything. It just seems like an excuse to complain about everything.
When we work for gender justice here, we really have to look at the whole historical, political, economical, even climate change situation.
Everything. It's everything. Gender justice, gender violence. You're talking about benefiting women. Just say what you mean. You're not generalizing. You call your foundation Women's Foundation. Why do we have gender this and gender? You're just talking about benefiting women, right? Whether justifiably or otherwise, sanely or otherwise. Gender. Women are not gender. Well, I suppose these days maybe they are.
That we're dealing with in this island. We have an already vulnerable population.
Right. Women are just vulnerable as a matter of course, right?
That it's just the situation is getting worse with every climate disaster. And internally, we haven't put our infrastructure at a level to survive that.
We haven't put our infrastructure at a level to survive every climate disaster. Okay.
Thank you, Veronica.
Yeah, okay. And how is intersectional feminism going to solve for the climate? Just out of curiosity.
At Women's Foundation of the South, we, I think I won't give a new definition. I'll just kind of piggyback on what's already been shared.
Well, since nothing in specificity has been shared, I guess piggybacking on nothing is going to be quite a trick.
In that, the folks that are most proximate to the challenges are also most proximate to the solutions.
The folks that are most approximate to the challenges are the ones most approximate to the solutions. Really? Then why haven't they solved it already? Why are we here? Right? Why hasn't Puerto Rico, as an example, cured itself of all of its gender justice issues? They've been approximate to it since Puerto Rico was Puerto Rico. So, okay.
Right. And so we are looking at whatever issue your foundation or your organization is working to address. Look at who is most impacted.
Look at who is most impacted by the issue you're trying to address. Yes, I suppose you would have to understand the issue you're talking about. And in order to understand that, you would have to either survey or talk to those impacted by the issue to understand the issue. Brilliant. Okay. And
who
is it women? Let me just jump ahead. Is it women? Is those most impacted by the issue? Any issue? I mean, you just heard our previous speaker. Like everything, the kitchen sink, plus climate change, plus corruption, plus economic disparity, plus investment, plus. Is the people most impacted by the issue? Is it women? Am I cheating by saying that?
Who is most proximate in those communities that
is it women
that are facing issues with housing or education or workforce or climate? And then take a look at the data and see who is most impacted by any challenges in any of those areas.
So wait. I'm supposed to take a look at who is impacted by these issues, climate, economics, and so on, then take a look at who is impacted by these issues. So, okay.
And so when we look at if we look at all of these things, all of these issues, and how
about just focusing on one issue? Okay, I think that might be the major problem with intersectionality. It gives anybody advocating for it or saying that they are a purveyor of the idea an excuse not to focus. Intersectional anything is the most ADHD philosophy on the world that you can think of, because it doesn't require you to focus on any one thing. You just say, everything is a problem. It's all interconnected. Here's the red string on the corkboard. Can't you see how complex this is? And can't you give me credit for pointing out how complex this is? And no, I don't have a solution for it. I'm just telling you this is a complex problem. Can't you see how complex it is? Pick one. Pick climate change. Tell us how intersectional feminism is going to address climate change. Right? Or just pick one.
They intersect. We see that oftentimes it's women and women of color that are the most negatively impacted in each of these areas.
Okay, you know what? I knew that, and admittedly, the theory itself knew that at its inception. What was Kimberly Crenshaw's argument? What was her basis to make up the term intersectionality in the first place? We have known this. If you believe in it, I will stipulate to its existence. We have known what intersectionality means since it was created. It is about the overlapping oppressions of women of color and how women of color, in the grand scheme of things, end up with the short end of the stick on every single issue because of the overlap of their race and their gender. Okay. Since the 90s, we have known that. You are not telling us anything that anybody who even does the most cursory look at what intersectionality is, let alone intersectional feminism is, would already know. So, do you have something new for us? Anything?
So what we took a look at was the Ms. Foundation's Pocket Change Report. And I don't know if you've seen this.
What?
If you haven't, I highly recommend you take a look at it.
I don't
So
know
Ms. Foundation launched the Pocket Change, How Women and Girls of Color Do More with Less report in.
Because women and girls of color are just, inherently economically and independently gifted, I guess?
I'm going to say it was July 2020 when it was launched. And in that report, it showed that of all philanthropic giving, that the national average for philanthropic dollars that go to support women and girls of color was $5.48.
Wait, what? Sorry. $5.48 is what? Sorry.
Was the Ms. Foundation's pocket change report. And I don't know if you've seen this. If you haven't, I highly recommend you take a look at it. So Ms. Foundation launched the Pocket Change, How Women and Girls of Color Do More with Less.
Pocket Change, How Women and Girls of Color Do More with Less.
Report in, I'm going to say it was July 2020 when it was launched. And in that report, it showed that of all philanthropic giving, that the national average for philanthropic dollars that go to support women and girls of color was $5.48.
The average amount of money that went to women and girls of color was $5.40. Are you talking about per individual? So money earmarked specifically for women and girls that are not white. I don't understand. So again, is this per individual you can think of or something?
And then they broke it down further into regions. So
broke it down further from $5.48. I'm confused.
In the Northeast, it was $10.31 per woman and girl of color.
Okay, per person. Okay, but you're not giving money to individuals. You're giving money to organizations or charities or something, right? And there are no other outlets, no other philanthropic organizations that just as a matter of their own, business service people in general that include women and girls of color. I'm like let's say that there was a girls in STEM organization, right, in a particular state, but it did not cater to specifically girls of color, just girls. You wouldn't count that money, right? You're only going to count money that is somehow specifically tailored to or marked for girls and women on the basis of their race, specifically not being white. Is that what I'm understanding?
In the West, it was $6.01 per woman and girl of color. The Midwest, $2.99, and for the South, it's $2.36.
Okay, there was a cut there. I didn't do that, so this is all original stuff. I guess I'll have to take your word for it, though I am sorely lacking context as to how they arrived at those numbers or what they're talking about. So, women and girls of color in the United States, on average, only receive individually, I'm guessing annually, $5.48 each. Okay.
So I used to frustratingly joke that we are trying to get to systemic change with $5, but actually in the South it's $2.36.
None of this makes any sense.
And what the report further uncovered was that if a nonprofit organization is led by a Black woman, then that number is often cut in half. So how do you get to systemic change in the Southern U.S. with $1.15?
I don't know. So I guess the first thing, if it's obvious that having a woman of color in charge of your charity is going to make less money just because of what she is, I don't know. How do you solve for that? I guess you'd have to apply some advantageous discrimination in your hiring practices or something, right? None of this makes any sense. Maybe you're just a lousy fundraiser. Individually, not because of what you are. I don't know. I don't know. How are you marketing yourself? Who are you going to raise funds? How are you raising funds? Maybe here's a crazy idea. I don't know if this is off there. Probably not in this day and age, but maybe you're turning off many people who might otherwise donate to a charity by saying that your charity is race specific. I mean, if you're raising money by, deifying some demographics and vilifying another one, could you possibly be cutting off the sources of fundraising by people that don't want to support that way of thinking? If you brand yourself as an intersectional feminism charity, maybe that's not an attractive idea to some people to put their money in. I don't know. I don't know what this report says. I don't know how they reach their numbers. I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. But just some thoughts from my side.
That's what we're looking at. And so that report, that data, and also the lived experience of the leaders that launched Women's Foundation of the South, collectively, we are looking at over 100 years of experience in the philanthropic sector.
And you can't collect more than $1.99 a year or something? Okay.
And what we've just known anecdotally in the foundations where we each came from was that how challenging it was to get resources into the hands of nonprofit organizations led by women of color.
Anecdotally. Okay. So everybody's racist and sexist at the same time because intersectionality. Okay.
And we wanted in law.
It's got nothing to do with anyone's individual ability to run a charity or an organization. It's because everybody is racist and or sexist. That's the only conclusion I can come to. Okay.
Nonprofit organizations led by women of color. And we wanted in launching this foundation, it really was to address that. And we know if organizations led by women of color or movements led by women of color are achieving great things in whichever sector they're in.
Well, you just said that they're not actually. I'm confused now.
What could they do with more?
What could they do with more? I'm assuming more of the same. Okay.
They're already performing at high levels with less resources.
Are they? If their average collection year over year per individual in their jurisdiction or constituency or whatever doesn't crest $6 a person, are they really doing that well? I'm not quite sure if this is an indictment of people for what they are or begging for sympathy for people for what they are, or okay.
Then their white counterparts, and also depending on the region with just literally pocket change. So what could you do with more resources?
Well, I don't know if you know this, and if this study was conducted, you said in 2020, I think you said. I don't know if you're aware of, just speaking in general. I mean, it could be, there might have been, I don't know, was there something going on in 2020? I mean, just, I don't know, economically or people's resources, or, how much, generally speaking, people felt they had to give extra on top of what they already had or already making. I mean, there might have been something going on around 2020, around that time frame that might have affected things, or people's outlook on how much they'd give in the future. I don't know. It's fuzzy. It's fuzzy in my mind, and all. But okay.
And that is what's shaping our work. Beyond that, we are focused on building the health, wealth, and power of women and girls of color. If these are
So again, you are a sexist and racist organization, okay?
The people in our communities that are having the greatest barriers to opportunity and to thrive, then how can we remove those barriers, and what do our communities look like when every family is able to thrive and fully participate in?
You're not talking about every family, you're talking about specific people based on elements that they cannot change. But okay, how do you remove those barriers? Or what's your plan to? I mean, I realize, I think she said the organization hasn't been around more than a couple of years. Okay, fine. 2 years isn't really long enough to necessarily, change the world or anything. All right, what is your plan to remove the barriers? Name a couple of barriers and tell us what your strategy is to remove those barriers.
In the economy and serving their communities.
Thank you for that.
Really? I don't know that there was much to thank for that. Going over to the chat real quick, first and foremost. Good morning, Jeanette E. Hellis. Anybody else I missed in the meantime? Let me scroll up a little bit. Did I say good morning to Ryan R? Good morning, Ryan R. If I didn't already. Arc 210. Good morning, if I didn't already say so. Sorry, my short-term memory is kind of truncated by this, whatever it is I'm listening to. What time is it now? Okay, I got about half an hour left. All right, now that we've had non-definitions of intersectional feminism and going all over the map except on where X is supposed to mark the spot, do we have something specific to talk about?
Veronica and Christy. Was really excited that you both agreed to participate in this conversation. And I think there's many parallels and many differences between Puerto Rico and the South.
You could say that. You could pick any two locations on the planet and make that exact same statement.
But also between you two individually. Veronica, it's my understanding that you started your work at Puerto Rico Women's Foundation in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria. And Christy, you started your philanthropic career in the aftermath of Katrina. So I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit about how those disasters impact your work.
It almost sounds like disaster profiteering. Boy, I see a gap in the market created by a giant windstorm. Sorry, that's just the cynical me talking. That's the very cynical me talking. I apologize. Can we get to actually talking about what it is that you individually or organizations are doing to solve these problems? The personal biographies are interesting only to a point. And supposedly this is a webinar. So is there an educational element coming down soon, or am I going to have to skip over a bunch of stuff? I'm assuming I have to skip over a bunch of stuff.
And also how, as intersectional feminists in the philanthropic space, we think about moving beyond responding to disasters and investing in long-term change.
Yeah. I didn't think that you guys were disaster relief foundations. Did I miss that part? What?
Yeah, I would love to take credit for the creation of the foundation.
Okay, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm gonna skip until I see our moderator again. Presumably she's gonna start asking a different question, because the personal biographies and personal motivations behind the individuals in this, I don't care. For as much as I look for entertainment in these things, I actually am trying to learn and or understand something about the subjects that I take a look at. Even if it's nonsensical, even if ultimately it's a bunch of hokum, I would like to at least get to the point where we're talking about the subject. So can we get to the subject?
Thank you both. One of the goals of today's conversation was to talk about what exactly are feminist funds or women's funds, and how are they powerful and what are their potential? And I think,
how are they powerful and what is their potential? Oh my God, come on.
One of the sort of case studies where we see that is around the approach to responding to disaster, but with a long-term intersectional feminist lens. I also think there's some interesting success stories about the potential of feminist funds
Okay, all right. Yeah, give us a success story. All right, please. Give me an example, an actual active example of what these organizations do and how they do it. And give me a success story where intersectional feminism swooped in to a situation and addressed an issue or helped out a thing or solved a problem. Something.
Coming after the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm curious, Veronica or Christy, if you kind of want to talk about the power and potential of women's funds, particularly coming out of that moment as well.
The power and potential. Potential. Yeah. I could sit around with some tarot cards and talk about potential all day, but it wouldn't actually mean anything about what has happened or what will work. All right, I'll give it a minute or two here, and then I'm probably going to skip over a bunch more stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
You want to start, Christy? It's okay.
Okay. So I would say, when we launched Women's Foundation of the South, August 2021, launched August 1st, August 30th, Hurricane Ida hit, right?
So wait, are you guys a disaster relief foundations? I'm asking sincerely because I obviously am very confused. You respond to natural disasters with your organizations, is that it?
And so what with being a brand new foundation and just really starting to build out the organizational structure, we're still very much in startup mode. The first resources that we received that had regranting, and we thought about what could we do that would have the most impact. We did two things. One, we started by focusing on strategic communications.
Okay, so she said what? Hurricane Ida hit. All right, strategic communications. What does that mean?
How can we get the word out about the organizations led by women of color that were leading the work, not only in the immediate aftermath of Hurricane Ida, but also who had been, as one of our grantees called it, the 911 of their communities.
What? So, on the advent of Hurricane Ida, your first thought was, how can we market ourselves? Is that how can we get the word out that we exist? Did I miss something here? Because when I thought strategic communications in the course of a hurricane, I thought, okay, like reestablishing internet access or phone lines or something. What does Hurricane Ida have to do with any of this?
All throughout the pandemic, and
what?
And had been.
How were your organization, a 911 for women throughout the pandemic? Let me back up a little bit. Did I miss something?
He's called it the 911 of their communities, all throughout the pandemic, and had been just the cornerstone of their community.
How? No, and again, I'm not trying to be jokey here. What did your organization do during the pandemic that you were referred to as the 911 of the community outside of 911 itself? What services did you provide? What resources did you give access to? What kind of help did you give? I mean, what?
For just forever.
How?
And so we used our ability to get the word out to other funders, to
get the word out about what? Get the word out about what?
Get articles done, to get news stories done in order to address and highlight the work that they were doing.
So Hurricane Ida hits, and you want to advertise the work that other charitable organizations are doing. What? I am baffled. I am baffled. Can we have a clear through line on a thought, please?
To send resources to Women's Foundation of the South, but to send resources directly to those organizations. And for
what organizations?
A foundation that was not created by a wealthy donor, dead or alive, we have to raise the dollars that we grant out. For us to take a moment to shift the...
Oh, wait. Okay, first and foremost, in the wake of a natural disaster, the first organization that I would think you'd want to encourage people to donate to would be something like the Red Cross or Doctors Without Borders or something. But you want to get the word out to get people to donate money to other women's organizations. And you have to figure out where you're going to put the grant money that you have to give it. I don't know. I have absolutely no idea what's going on right now.
Focus off of ourselves and directly to the grantees in order to raise money was of utmost importance at that moment. And this is I'm signaling this because I don't think it's a naturally occurring thought for a lot of folks in philanthropy to do that. So
to raise money? Okay. Center yourself. Center yourself, scribe. Just take a moment. Oh, okay. Let's maybe there's a point here somewhere.
Beyond that, once we got dollars to re-grant, the first thing we did was
you gave it to the Red Cross. You gave it to a recovery organization for Hurricane Ida. You funded Doctors Without Borders. You did something productive with that to help with the relief.
Offer folks a break.
What?
We created a program, which is now our flagship program, called Women of Color at Rest, or Woke at Rest for short.
Women of Color at Rest. Okay, and Woke at Rest. That's a contradiction of terms, but okay. And what did Woke at Rest do for victims of Hurricane Ida? I'm still waiting for how Hurricane Ida comes into this equation.
And what we did was invited several leaders. We started in Louisiana, because that's home. The foundation's headquartered in New Orleans, and invited them to a 2-day healing-centered retreat.
So you had a 2-day spa outing,
and gave their organizations grant dollars to support the leader.
Grant dollars to support the leader. I don't know what that means. What does that have to do with Hurricane Ida?
And support the leader in a way that they best saw fit, as long as it was used for their leadership development and
So you gave free money to people running charitable organizations on the honor system promise that they'd use it. What am I listening to? What is this? Like influence peddling and glad handing amongst charitable organizations on the promise that they use it for professional development? Why not give that money to the Red Cross? Why not give that money to Doctors Without Borders? Why not give that to some kind of relief aid for the victims of Hurricane Ida? How? Giving money to yourselves in your network of fundraisers. This does what? Exactly.
restoration.
Okay, sorry, back up a couple of seconds. Let's try that again.
And invited them to a 2-day healing-centered retreat and gave their organizations grant dollars to support the leader in a way that they best saw fit, as long as it was used for their leadership development and restoration.
Leadership development and restoring them from what? I mean, if I decide, golly, it would be really restorative for me if I took a trip to Vegas. So I'm going to take this grant money you just gave me and take a holiday to Vegas. I need it for my restoration. Also, it professionally develops me as a user of money. Like, what are you talking about?
And that could look like
a
vacation.
No, Jesus Christ. Oh, man. Oh, Lord. You know what I need as the leader of a charitable organization who's supposedly helping the most downtrodden, the most victimized, the most intersectional oppressed in the world? Man, I need a vacation. This sounds like absolute money laundering. Again, I am not a lawyer. I'm not I cannot assess this. I'm just saying what it sounds like. So you're saying you took in charitable funds to help downtrodden women of color, and then you decided to distribute these funds as grants to specifically the leaders of other charitable organizations, which I'm assuming are individual people. You took them all out on a 2-day retreat in New Orleans and then gifted them big checks for all the wonderful work they're doing on the promise that they use it for professional development and restoration. And that can look like a personal vacation, using money that was grant money to a charitable organization so they don't have to pay for it themselves. Do you think, and I'm just spitballing here, do you think that was the intention and the desire of the people who donated money to your organization, that you would then funnel it to individuals in other organizations that they could then spend it on plane tickets and hotel stays? Boy, I was just, I've been kind of enthralled, as I often am with financial crimes and things, with the current controversy over The Completionist. If you guys don't know, the YouTuber The Completionist has been running a charity operation for the last at least decade or so in some way, shape, or form. And recently, a couple of other YouTubers that I follow, Carl Jobst and Some Ordinary Gamer, decided to look at their tax filings over the last decade or so, or at least the last 4 or 5 years in particular, and found some anomalies that put the legitimacy of those charities into serious question. I won't go over too much here because you're much better off looking up the completionist charity situation yourself. Specifically, look up Carl Jobst, KarlJobst, his YouTube channel and his videos on the subject. But man, I got to say, after this little confessional, I'd be very curious to take a look at this organization's tax filings.
It could look like therapy. It could look like covering medical expenses. It could, because the first line.
Wait. You distributed charitable donations as grants to other individuals that they might use it on personal vacations and personal medical expenses. Possibly. Okay, if you say so.
Launched this right after the aftermath of Ida. Some had to use it to help rebuild their homes.
Wait. This is getting worse. Okay, so now possibly You gave charitable donations in the form of grants out to individuals at other charitable organizations that they might use it to either take a vacation, get therapy, pay for their own medical expenses, or assist in the rebuilding of their own homes after Hurricane Ida. Not giving the money to organizations that are helping the population rebuild their homes, but these specific individuals to finance their home repairs. Am I? Okay. Shady is just the one word that comes to my mind as I'm hearing this.
Or offices. And
their offices, not only their homes, but their offices. Okay.
Through that, we learned so much.
Uh-huh.
So much so that we decided that this would be our way to enter into community.
This would be your way to enter into community? Did I hear that?
So to date, we've launched Woke at Rest in Louisiana. Last year we expanded to Mississippi. This year we're expanding to Texas and Georgia. That's why I'm in Dallas right now. We are doing our Woke at Rest retreat with a cohort of Dallas-based grantees.
Wait. So you're going to have a network of organizations and or events where you take in charitable donation money and give it out as awards to leaders of other charitable organizations in order to build your influence and network? What? What? Keep talking. I'm going to chronicle this for posterity, if nothing else. I mean, if the original video for some reason disappears in the future, at least this will be a record of some of this.
And we'll be in Atlanta towards the end of the year. And the way in which we are doing this work, this investment in the leader, this investment in relationship building.
Influence peddling. It's called influence peddling.
This investment in coalition building will allow for us to have a network of over 300 women of color leaders once we've made it through all 13 Southern states, that we come together and collectively build a strategy to build the health, wealth, and power of women and girls of color.
No. You're talking about building the health, wealth, and power of individual charitable organization leaders. You're paying for... Boy, oh boy, when we had our first speaker talking about, or at least mentioning offhand, the corruption of Puerto Rico, and now we have a network of quote-unquote charitable organizations taking in donation money and distributing it amongst themselves for their own enrichment and recreation. I don't know, guys. I feel like I have to make this a project now. I don't have enough time to keep going on this today. I don't know that I have enough sanity, but I think I might pull a Carl Jobst on this, and just for my own information, pull the tax filings on this organization. I'd be curious to know how much money's coming in and how much is going out and where it's coming from and where it's going. But okay, well, that's 40 minutes of an hour and a half long webinar. I don't know if I want to do a part two. I might do a part two at some point, maybe a follow-up or something. Boy, howdy. That is, it's always something, it's always buried somewhere in these things where something very interesting is said. Everything else sounds like nonsense and babble. And then finally, someone says something really interesting. It reminds me of the time I was looking at a panel discussion from the intelligence community talking about diversity and inclusion in the CIA, or the intelligence community in particular. And then all of a sudden, I believe it was General Hayden. I want to say it was that. I might be mistaken. Anyway, a former director of the CIA popped in onto this panel discussion talking about diversity in the intelligence community. And just on that open call, in public, in front of everyone, he admitted that despite being told not to by Congress, he instituted a blatantly discriminatory and sexist hiring scheme within the CIA. I'm not kidding. This really did happen. This really did happen on my show on the air, and I was just baffled by this. That against the advice of both the lawyers and the law, he just instituted, sex discrimination in hiring and promotion in the CIA for a time. This is not maybe quite that amazing, but it is interesting. So I'm gonna do some extracurricular research just to see what I see, and if I find anything interesting, I'll let you guys know. But I'm gonna start wrapping things up here. Before I go, a couple of programming notes. First, I have a Discord, if you can believe it, and if you'd like to join the Discord, the link is now in the chat. You just have to click on that. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello, and in addition to saying hello, you just have to give the secret word. The secret word will tell me and my moderators that you actually watch the show and have earned the right, the privilege of joining the Discord server. And today's secret word is woke at rest. WOC at rest. It's all one word. I'll really know you watch this stream if you say woke at rest, because no one else would say that otherwise. Beyond that, tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, over on the Midnight's Edge After Dark channel, you will find me there with Tom Connors and the rest of the crew as we discuss the first 5 of our list of 15 favorite Christmas movies on the shit list. That's what the show is called now, the shit list. So go join me on that at that time tonight if you're so able. And beyond that, I think that's everything. I don't think I forgot anything. But as always, Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, you'll find me here doing TED Excellence, where I'll take a look at off-brand TED Talks. So yes, I think I'll do some extra work on this one, just out of curiosity. And beyond that, everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Hope you enjoyed the show. Let me know what you thought about it down below in the comments, if you will. Also, leave a like on the way out. Apparently, that supposedly helps out with the algorithm. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here has been so well behaved, you had very little to do. Everybody who donated, either to myself or to the fundraisers at the top of the chat box, thank you guys so much for your generosity. I really, really do appreciate it. I hope everyone has a good rest of their Sunday. I hope you have a good rest of your weekend in general and the week ahead of you. I hope you are all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.